for help.
Welcome to J Silver Presents, where we present the best in esports from your favorite professionals. I am joined by Fudge from Cloud9 after their loss against the Golden Guardians. Fudge, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, I have to ask a little bit about EMENES. There were a lot of interviews that came out beforehand. Jordan Marnie's interview with him ahead of time. But the one interview that stands out to me the most is your preseason interview with when you were sitting with Jack talking about the Challenger roster, and you guys were talking about EMENES with
hmm
Labber really emphasizing that he should be in Cloud9's organization. You've had a little bit of time to practice with him. How has it been encompassing him in the culture of Cloud9?
He actually has fit in really, really well the first week. He's actually I actually really enjoy having him as a teammate because he shows that he cares a lot and he wants to argue about certain ideas about the game or like what's right, what's wrong, what's good or what's bad. But he doesn't get really emotional or doesn't make it personal, doesn't take it personally when someone's telling him like he's wrong about something. And I think he's really, really good. I think he's like probably like a top 3 mid laner mechanically in the league. Um, Today's performance, obviously, like he probably was a bit nervous. He also will feel really bad because it's his first game and he played pretty poorly. But I have actually a lot of confidence in him as a mid laner, and I think he'll show that he's actually one of the best mid laners in the league in coming weeks.
Mm-hmm. Every time I've chatted with you at this point, it's always been at a point where Cloud9 is heavily being looked at as one of the top 2 teams in North America. I know you guys kept the main core intact of the 4 of you and then swapping out the mid laners. But how has it been essentially running it back this spring?
I actually really like it because there's no like early growing pains of not knowing what your teammates are like, trying to get to know them, trying to like understand how they think about the game. Everything's already sort of the same as last year. And only having one player different doesn't really change the team dynamic too much. So it was pretty comfortable getting back into playing scrims and games for me. And I felt like I could just focus on like improving rather than having to, think about how to talk to my teammates or thinking about how they think, stuff like that. You sort of already know them. And obviously, I mean, as you said, we are considered to be like a top team, but it's up for contention, and there is a lot of good competition this split with a lot of different teams. So we still have to work really, really hard to maintain a high level of gameplay. And I do think that we are probably one of the best teams, but right now we do seem to be pretty inconsistent depending on whichever like comp we play, or sometimes we make some really strange decisions on stage where we try to, I mean, it's not really just on stage, on scrims as well, where we just try to fight certain things that we just can't simply. And that sort of stuff happens still on stage. And I think it leads to us losing some of the games, even against teams that if we played them over maybe 10 games, we'd win majority of the time. It's really, the split has been smooth to start with, but we still, obviously there's still the stresses of losing these sort of games and having to review them and talk as a team. And it's a classic regular season of problems and trying to fix things.
And then all of a sudden doing miracle runs in the playoffs. We've seen this song and dance a lot of times.
Yeah, it's classic.
One of the things I hear what you're talking about, but I want to also apply this to the Golden Guardians game. You mentioned that this could have been a game where you made some strange mistakes and ultimately you're looking to improve upon those. Is there one particular moment, at least in your mind, that stands out that something you want to revisit in scrims or?
It's hard to attack these problems in scrims because usually it's a lack of like understanding of champions damage, but also just a feeling of trying to outplay them, Like sometimes you even know like a fight's not really in your favor, but you still try to go for it because you think you're a little bit better than them or something like this. And I think we do that a lot in scrims. And I think on stage today, I wasn't actually watching mid lane or jungle this game, but there was a lot of like random deaths and fights that we just lost. One in mind that I could think of is when we tried to fight the first dragon, and EMENES had to flash away. And as soon as Victor loses flash against Vi, Silas, it's really, really hard for him to survive and like ganks afterwards. So I think those sort of things where it's like the bot lane, enemy bot lane has move. It's clearly like a numbers disadvantage. It's clearly a disadvantaged fight. We'd go into review and we're like, this is unwinnable fight. But in game, we still sort of have this feeling that like, oh, we'll try to like fight it or look at it and maybe try to outplay a little bit. I think those sort of things are pretty clear mistakes that we do make in scrims and we have been making on stage.
Okay. One of the things I want to ask about is the top lane. We've kind of been seeing a little bit of a return to the tank meta. Today you pulled out the Gragas, which we saw a lot in Europe, not so much in North America. But I know you're no stranger to the pick. Is Gragas one of those picks that more people should be paying respect to, or do you think it's just one of those situational picks?
I think it's still sort of situational. I do think, I mean, the thing I like about Gragas is that you have a lot of flexibility as a champion. You can go AP, you can go tank, you can also engage with your ulti, like E-Flash ulti, or you can also peel with your ulti. So it has a lot of flexibility in comps. And also its laning is pretty strong with its passive and W, obviously. Today, I think I misplayed lane a little bit in level 1 to 5. I went down like 10 CS when I really shouldn't be, mainly because of like bad trades. So that sort of mistake is really bad by me. I did end up coming back in the lane and getting ahead, but I did just pick it into Jax because it is a known pick into Jax. Throughout the world, everyone's playing Gragas vs Jax as a counter pick. And I don't think that it's OP, but I do think that it's undervalued in some drafts by a lot of teams.
Mm-hmm. It seems like Jax has been the giant bully in the lane. I know Jax is getting some nerfs, but he's still going to remain at the top. I know you like to play those fighter champions, like the Fioras and the Jaxes. Do you think this is going to be a healthy spot where it's just Jax versus everybody else? Or do you think we should try to see in the future possibly further nerfs that allow other diverse picks?
I actually think Jax isn't like overpowered right now. I do think that it can be blind picked and it can go even in a lot of lanes and scale and be useful, but usually there are champions that you can pick like Jace or Gragas, for example, Fiora, Renekton, all sort of beat Jax right now in top lane, and even before the nerfs. The nerfs, I believe, were pretty decent nerfs, so I don't think that they're going to need to further nerf him. I do think that in certain comps, Jax can be really broken, but I don't think it's a champion that just like you can pick it early in the draft and always be really broken. So I wouldn't say that they need to further nerf it after the ones they're giving him now on 13.4, but it will still be a pick where you'll have to think about like, oh, is our comp bad into Jax? If our comp's bad into Jax, we have to ban it, that sort of thing. And I obviously enjoy playing Jax. It was actually like probably my most played in the first couple of weeks of scrims by far. Even though Cassante I played in the first week, I actually played like Jax like 80% of the scrim games. So I really enjoy playing Jax, and I think it's a strong champion. But I don't think it's going to be needed to be nerfed any further after 13.4.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Couple more questions for you. Number one, every time that you and I have chat, we always talk about the expectation of goals. You won a title. You've been to the world stage. You've been to quarterfinals, being the only NA team to do so. But like you said, there are moments where you're a little concerned with the inconsistencies. Where do you see this Cloud9 team eventually ending up?
Right now, I think we're probably worse than FlyQuest. But I do think that as players, it just feels like we have some sort of superpower where we're able to like, as soon as playoffs comes around, we just take it like 2 times more seriously and we like really focus up and we really care. And then when that happens, it feels like we just can't lose. At least in NA, right? That's how it felt to me. With the same 4 players, obviously we had Jensen last year, but I do think EMENES is really good, and I think he'll continue to improve a lot. Work on his communication with the team, work on playing with his team, and making just better decisions overall. And I do think we'll definitely be the best team by end of spring for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a doubt about that in my mind.
Gotcha. I also want to ask about a little bit about your experience in the mid lane. I know you don't have as much time, but in the LCK today, we saw some Azir in the top lane. I think it was Alma Life.
I didn't actually see that.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. So I'm curious, do you think these players are inspired by you playing mid lane for a little bit and then
Nah,
taking the mages up there?
I don't think they're inspired by that. I mean, it depends. Like, Azir top has actually been played before, like years ago, into specific matchups. Do you know what matchup he played it into today?
I believe me, I think it was actually an Annie top.
Oh, okay, I
I
see, I
think it
see.
was your former group mate in T1's game that actually this all
Oh,
happened.
okay, that's interesting. I mean, Annie's obviously weak to mages, so it makes sense that like they put a mage into top lane, and a lot of Korean players are really good at like a lot of top laners in Korea are really good at playing like mid lane mages as well. So I could see it being picked. In general, mages have always been like able to be picked. It just really depends on what the enemy top laner plays. If you play Annie, I could definitely see mages coming back. I don't actually think Annie top lane is very good, but Annie does have a lot of priority in general throughout the world right now. So uh, maybe I'll end up playing some Azir. I might play some Orianna top lane, and just farm it up, scale. You never know. I look forward to playing mages. I actually enjoyed playing mid lane the most because of mage matchups where you just sort of just farm and you just get CS leads, play slow, scale, and just become really good at team fighting. And there's a lot of like mechanics to do with it. So I hope mages come to top lane. That's gonna be fun.
I hope so too. Finally, is there anything you'd like to say to the fans of Cloud9?
Um, I assume a lot of fans will probably be shitting on EMENES just because he's the new guy and it's like, oh, he didn't play that well, blah 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 blah. But I think if you give him a little bit of time, give him till the end of next week, I think he'll prove to you why he's really good, and I think he is really really good. And um, just have a little bit of patience. That's all I have to say.
All right, with that, that's all the questions I have. Fudge, I always enjoy chatting with you, and I look
Thank you.
forward to
Yeah.
seeing you throughout the rest of the split.
Appreciate it. See ya.
Will do.
For help. The DJ is crying.